What if I told you that archaeologists discovered evidence at biblical Jericho revealing 9,000 years of continuous sacred significance? Evidence so ancient, so sophisticated, it reveals an unbroken chain of spiritual importance spanning millennia. They buried the evidence. We dig it up. What you're about to see connects prehistoric ritual practices to the biblical narrative in ways that deserve investigation. This is the Artifacts Detective, and today we're investigating how 9,000-year-old skulls from Jericho reveal the deep history of this biblical site. Welcome to the Artifacts Detective, where we investigate history's greatest mysteries through archaeological evidence. I'm your host, and today we're examining a remarkable discovery from biblical Jericho that reveals layers of history often overlooked in traditional presentations. We'll examine the archaeological evidence, analyze what the latest research reveals, investigate the historical implications, and explore how this discovery demonstrates Jericho's significance extends far deeper into history than commonly discussed. But first, let me show you something that illuminates the deep historical roots of biblical sites. This skull was found at the exact same site where Joshua's walls came tumbling down. Dating to approximately 7000 BC, it demonstrates that Jericho was a significant ritual center for millennia before the biblical events. Every student of the Bible knows Jericho, the first city conquered by the Israelites after crossing the Jordan. The city whose walls fell at the sound of trumpets and shouts, as recorded in Joshua chapter 6. But archaeological evidence reveals that this site held spiritual significance for over 7,000 years before the biblical conquest, a fact that adds remarkable depth to the biblical narrative. In 1953, British archaeologist Dame Kathleen Kenyon made a discovery during her systematic excavation of ancient Jericho that would reshape our understanding of prehistoric religion. 7 human skulls, carefully covered in plaster with shells for eyes. These sophisticated ritual objects date to the Pre-Pottery Neolithic B period, approximately 7000 BC. According to Kenyon's excavation reports published in Excavations at Jericho, Volume 3, 1981, British School of Archaeology in Jerusalem, these skulls were found in a Middle Pre-Pottery Neolithic B context, carefully separated from one another and placed below the plastered floors of houses. These skulls represent some of the earliest evidence of ancestor veneration in human history. As noted in the Oxford Handbook of the Archaeology of Death and Burial, 2013, edited by Liv Nilsson Stutz and Sarah Torlo, these plastered skulls represent one of the earliest forms of portraiture in human history. The creation process reveals remarkable technical skill. First, the skulls were carefully defleshed, likely through burial and natural decomposition. Then, artisans applied multiple layers of plaster to recreate facial features. The use of shells for eyes created a lifelike appearance that must have been striking to ancient viewers. Ian Kite, in his article, The Regeneration of Life, Neolithic Structures of Symbolic Remembering and Forgetting, Current Anthropology, Volume 49, number 2008, pages 171-197, argues that these skulls were part of complex mortuary rituals involving the curation and circulation of human remains within communities. Ask yourself, why would this particular location maintain such consistent spiritual importance across millennia? The evidence suggests Jericho's strategic location and water sources made it a natural gathering place for ritual activities throughout prehistory. Jericho sits in the Jordan Valley, near a perennial spring known as Ain Sultan. This spring's output creates an oasis in an otherwise arid landscape. For prehistoric peoples, such reliable water sources often became sacred spaces associated with life-giving forces. As Ofer Bar Yosef notes in The Natufian Culture in the Levant, International Monographs in Prehistory 1991, the availability of permanent water sources, like the one at Jericho, was crucial for the development of sedentary communities in the Near East. Today, these skulls are preserved in major museums: the British Museum, Ashmolean Museum, Jordan Archaeological Museum, and others. Each institution maintains strict conservation protocols to preserve these fragile artifacts. Modern technology continues to reveal new details about these ancient artifacts. So far, we've established that Jericho was a major ritual site thousands of years before the biblical period. Let's now examine what modern analysis reveals about these remarkable artifacts. Modern technology has revolutionized our understanding of these skulls. Recent micro-CT analysis has revealed remarkable details about their construction and the individuals they represent. According to research published by Alexandra Fletcher and colleagues in Technical Study of Plastered Skulls from Jericho, British Museum Technical Research Bulletin 2014, CT scanning revealed previously invisible details about skull modification and plaster application techniques. Scientific analysis of the plaster composition shows sophisticated material knowledge. Research by Kingery, Vandiver, and Prickett, published in The Beginnings of Pyrotechnology, Part 2, Journal of Field Archaeology, 1988, indicates that producing lime plaster requires sustained temperatures above 750 degrees Celsius. Archaeological excavation revealed these skulls were placed beneath house floors, a practice that continued in various forms throughout the ancient Near East. As noted by Gary Rollofson in Neolithic Ain Ghazal, Jordan, Ritual and Ceremony, Thrur, Paleorient, Volume 24, number 1998, pages 43-58, the subfloor placement of these skulls suggests they played a role in household rituals and may have served as mediators between the living and the dead. Similar practices are documented at other Neolithic sites, including Ain Ghazal in Jordan, Tat al-Hoyuk in Turkey, Tel Aswad in Syria, and Beisamun in Israel. This widespread distribution suggests shared cultural practices across the pre-pottery Neolithic B period. Recent bioarchaeological analysis has revealed surprising demographic patterns. Michelle Bonagovsky's comprehensive study, Cranial Modeling and Neolithic Bone Modification at Ain Ghazal, New Interpretations, Paleorient, Volume 37, number 1, 2011, pages 147-162 indicates both male and female individuals are represented. Age ranges span from adolescents to older adults. No single demographic pattern emerges across all sites. Selection criteria appear to have varied between communities. The Levantine sites have yielded numerous plastered skulls, revealing the extent of this Neolithic tradition. While exact numbers are difficult to establish due to fragmentary preservation, current evidence indicates multiple examples at Jericho, the largest collection at Ain Ghazal, and additional specimens at sites throughout the region. Multiple dating techniques confirm the age of these artifacts, as documented in Radiocarbon Dates from Jericho and the Chronology of the Near Eastern Pre-Pottery Neolithic by James Mellart, Antiquity Volume 31, 1957. Multiple samples from the skull-bearing layers at Jericho have yielded consistent dates in the 7th millennium BC. The scientific evidence reveals sophisticated ritual practices at Jericho spanning millennia. Now let's explore what this means for understanding the site's biblical significance. Archaeological evidence demonstrates remarkable continuity at Jericho. Despite periods of abandonment, the site was repeatedly reoccupied, suggesting its enduring importance. The archaeological record shows several major periods of occupation. The Pre-Pottery Neolithic, a period, 8,500 to 7,600 BC, witnessed the construction of the famous Tower of Jericho, a massive stone structure whose purpose remains debated. The Pre-Pottery Neolithic B period, 7,600 to 6,000 BC, brought the plastered skull tradition and increasingly complex architecture. By the Bronze Age, Jericho had developed into a fortified city-state, the same urban center mentioned in biblical accounts. Lorenzo Negro, co-director of the Italian-Palestinian archaeological expedition to Tel es-Sultan, documents in Tel es-Sultan, Ancient Jericho in the Early Bronze Age, Near Eastern Archaeology, Volume 83, number 1020, pages 4-17. The impressive fortifications and urban planning of the ancient city. The British Museum has undertaken projects to study the Jericho skulls using modern analytical techniques, including CT scanning and pigment analysis. These reconstructions help us understand how these ancestors were memorialized by their descendants. Now we see clear evidence of continuous ritual importance at Jericho. Let's examine what this means for understanding biblical archaeology. The archaeological record at Jericho reveals multiple layers of significance. Pre-Pottery Neolithic, 8,500 to 6,000 BC, the era of monumental architecture and ritual skull practices. Chalcolithic period, 4,500 to 3,300 BC, continued occupation with new cultural elements. Early Bronze Age, 3,300 to 2,300 BC, development of urban fortifications. Middle Bronze Age, 2,300 to 1,550 BC, major urban center with massive fortifications. Late Bronze Age, 1550 to 1200 BC, the period most closely associated with the biblical account of Joshua. The Late Bronze Age evidence has been the subject of intense debate. Bryant Wood in Did the Israelites Conquer Jericho? A New Look at the Archaeological Evidence. Biblical Archaeology Review, Volume 16, Number 2, 1990, argues for a destruction layer that could correspond to the biblical account. However, other archaeologists point to limited Late Bronze Age remains at the site. This deep history provides context for understanding why Jericho held such significance in the biblical narrative. As the first city conquered after crossing the Jordan, it represented both a strategic and symbolic victory. From a strategic perspective, Jericho controlled access to the central hill country of Canaan. Symbolically, if the site had maintained religious importance for millennia, as the plastered skulls suggest, then its conquest would have demonstrated the power of the Israelite God over ancient spiritual traditions. The Jericho skulls and subsequent archaeological discoveries demonstrate long-term human occupation at strategic locations, continuity of ritual practices across cultures, the importance of water sources in determining sacred sites, archaeological evidence supporting biblical geography. Amihai Mazar, in Archaeology of the Land of the Bible, Doubleday, 1990, notes that the correlation between the biblical text and the archaeological evidence, when properly understood, often reveals the historical reliability of the biblical geographical framework. Modern archaeological research at Jericho continues through Italian-Palestinian excavations led by Sapienza University of Rome. These investigations follow rigorous academic standards and peer review processes, ensuring conclusions are based on solid evidence. These skulls represent an important chapter in human history, early evidence of how our ancestors memorialized their dead and maintained connections across generations. As noted by Denise Schmant-Besserat in Symbols at Ain Ghazal, Bibliothèque de l'IFPO, 2013, these plastered skulls represent the beginning of a long tradition of portraiture in the ancient Near East. For over 9,000 years, Jericho has drawn human communities. From Neolithic farmers practicing ancestor veneration, to Bronze Age city dwellers, to the Israelites of the biblical narrative, this oasis in the Jordan Valley has witnessed remarkable continuity of human experience. The archaeological evidence from Jericho, including these remarkable plastered skulls, provides tangible connections to our shared human past. Through careful excavation, scientific analysis, and scholarly research, we continue to uncover new insights about this historically significant site. The artifacts don't lie. The evidence speaks for itself, and what it tells us is that biblical sites like Jericho often preserve incredibly deep histories. Histories that enrich rather than contradict our understanding of biblical narratives when examined through professional archaeological investigation. As William Dever notes in What Did the Biblical Writers Know and When Did They Know It? Eerdmans, 2001. Archaeology provides a context for understanding the biblical text, not proof of its divine inspiration, but confirmation of its rootedness in historical reality. The plastered skulls of Jericho remind us that human history is complex and layered. They challenge us to think beyond simple narratives and consider the deep continuities that connect us to our ancient ancestors. What do you think about these ancient discoveries at Jericho? How does understanding the site's deep history affect your perspective on biblical archaeology? Share your thoughts below. I'm always interested in thoughtful discussion about archaeological evidence. If you want more evidence-based investigations into archaeological mysteries, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Join us next time as we investigate another archaeological discovery where someone buried the evidence and we dig it up. Together, we'll continue to uncover the mysteries preserved in archaeological sites around the world. Because understanding where we came from helps us understand who we are. Uncover more ancient mysteries. Follow the Artifacts Detective and join the investigation.